In this episode, we'll be discussing what KPIs matter for executive thought leadership in B2B. We'll be discussing your specific audience. We'll explore the specific problem that you solve or the solution that you provide and the way that you measure success. And then we're going to cover how you'll know if your thought leadership is working. Are you truly positioned as a thought leader? Let's dive right in. Before we even look at KPIs, we have to take a step back, because if you don't know exactly who you're talking to, then your KPIs are just noise. You're optimizing a system without a target. So this is where most executives get it wrong. They think that thought leadership is just about sharing smart information. If I sound intelligent, if I add value, then the audience will come. But that's not how this works, because not all audiences are equal and not all views are equal. You might be creating a lot of content. You might be talking a lot about your subject matter, but that doesn't mean that you're in front of your dream clients, and that's really the only thing that actually matters. We're not trying to create the most content. That's not even realistic. What we're doing is we're going down really narrow. We're identifying a very specific audience, and then we're finding the exact questions that they're asking. This is where it gets really tactical. You start with the demographics and the psychographics, like the job title, their revenue, their industry, maybe the mindset they're in right now. But then we go a little bit deeper. We look at the actual questions that these people are asking in your space. And you group those questions together into branches. So I like to look at different categories of these questions. And because I use a tree analogy, I call them branches. So you look at groups of these questions or branches, and you'll find that some of those branches, they're not your audience at all. But then you'll find certain branches where every single question is coming from your ideal client. You can see their situation. You can see the exact problem that they're trying to solve. That's the branch that you want to go all in on, because that's the path to you dominating your category. Not domination of a broad topic or industry, but domination in front of your dream client. So when you get to that point, that's where KPIs start to get distorted if you're not careful. I have a client, and recently we were looking at some of the data, some of the topics he was focusing on. He was tracking all the right metrics. Views were going up, watch time was improving, leads were coming in, and in the numbers or on paper, everything looked like a success. But there was a problem. All the traction was coming from content about cash flow issues, and those viewers, they couldn't afford the high-ticket coaching offer that he had. So even though the metrics looked good, at the end there was no sales. So that's the danger, because if the audience is wrong, then the data lies. The data is important, and the data will show that there's progress, but if it doesn't translate into revenue, then we have to figure out what's missing. So this is why one of the biggest misconceptions is thinking that all views are equal, and they're not. Viral traffic, or YouTube, we call it suggested traffic. It feels very exciting, but it's often the least valuable. The most valuable metric is search traffic, because search traffic turns into lead generation. These people are actively indicating that they need your help. They're not just browsing, but they're looking for a solution. And if your content is aligned with your dream client and their exact positioning, then having these people find you is what matters. Now, when you look at your KPIs, you're not just seeing growth, you're seeing the right people finding you. And the KPIs stop being noise and actually start becoming useful. They tell you something real. So it's not just a percentage and you see this random number going up, but they're actually numbers that paint a picture and let you know that you're moving forward. When you have numbers that are actually valuable like this is when you can get excited about the numbers and you can trust that it's actually leading you somewhere. Now that you're clear on your audience, the next piece is just as critical. What problem do you actually solve? Because your KPIs only matter if your solution matches what your audience actually needs. There has to be alignment from start to finish, from the moment that someone searches online to the moment that they get on a call with you, the moment that you present your offer. It all has to match. This is where a lot of executives get off track. They talk about their system, their framework, or their process. Those things are obviously important. That's how you get results. That's what makes you unique. It's what you've mastered, but it's not what your audience is buying. Your audience doesn't buy your process, they buy the outcome that you deliver. And when your content focuses too much on the system, then it creates friction, or it actually creates a barrier because they don't realize what you can do for them. You'll end up having to convince people that they need your process because your process isn't something that they're searching for. But you'll never have to convince someone that they want a result. They already know that. So instead of leading with how you do it, you lead with what it does for them. The system supports that outcome. This becomes really important when you look at your content strategy, because now when you're researching questions, you're not just asking, can I answer this question? You're asking, does this lead to my solution? Is this the type of person who wants the outcome that I provide? Or is someone looking for a completely different result? So let me give you a simple example. Let's say you help parents get their kids to listen without yelling. So that is the outcome. You might find a question like, what's the best candy to give a child to get them to listen? You could answer that, but that's not your audience. That's someone looking for a shortcut, not someone that's willing to change their behavior to get a long-term result. So even though the topic is related, it doesn't lead to your solution. And if you build content around the wrong problems, you create the same issue that we talked about before. You can get the views, you can get leads, but they won't convert because the problem that they're trying to solve is not the one that you actually solve. So now your KPIs are misleading you again. It looks like things are working, but it's not driving revenue. This is why clarity on your problem and solution is so important. Once you have that locked in, then your content is now aligned and your audience is aligned. And when you look at your KPIs, they actually start to tell you something useful. They can show you how many of the right people are finding you and how many are turning into leads and how many of them are becoming clients. So now you're not just generating attention, you're generating demand for the exact solutions you provide. And that's when your numbers start to translate into real revenue. So one more thing before we talk about specific KPIs, we have to define what success actually is. Most people actually get this wrong from the start. They measure activity. And as we've been talking, we care about those end results. The distinction between activity and results, it changes everything. So if you don't define success clearly, your KPIs will track the wrong things. And you'll feel like you're making progress, but you're not actually moving your business forward. I see this all the time because people focus on views and subscribers and defining that as their success. And that's not always wrong. If your business model is ad revenue, then views and subscribers are the right metrics to track, but that's not what we're doing here. This is lead generation for a business. This is about attracting a very specific audience and converting them into clients. So if your content goes viral to the wrong audience, that's not success. If you gain subscribers who never buy from you, that's not success and it can really hurt you. The algorithm will get confused. So this means we have to define success differently. The simplest way to do this is point A to point B. So where are your clients before they work with you? That's point A. And then what result do you help them with? That's point B. And if you can't clearly define point A to point B and what that journey is, or what that transformation is, then you can't measure success. Success is that transformation. So once that's clear, then you can start tracking it. How many people are moving from point A to point B? How long does it take? What are the key steps along the way? Are people getting stuck at a certain stage? Are you on track with the timeline that you expect? So all these things would be real measurements and they're tied to that outcome. So you can look at the numbers of how many leads are coming in, how many of those leads are qualified, how many convert into clients, how many actually reach the outcome that you promise. Each of those can be measured, each of those can be scored, and now you're not just looking at a number, so now you're just looking at the health of your entire system or your business. And when you're measuring revenue, that's the core measurement of success, but it's not the only one. You also want to understand, are we attracting the right people? Are they progressing the right way? Are they actually getting results? And when you define success this way, now your KPIs aren't just numbers on a dashboard, they're indicators of real business performance. Now you're not guessing what matters, you're measuring what actually drives results. Now that we've defined your audience and we've clarified the problem you solve and defined what success actually looks like, the question becomes, How do you know if your thought leadership is actually working? This is where most people go back to the wrong metrics. They look at views, they look at subscribers, they look at engagement, but those don't tell you if you're winning in your market. The most important KPI for thought leadership is your positioning. Are you showing up where your dream clients are already looking? Because if you are, you win. If you're not, then nothing else really matters. So the question becomes, when your ideal clients search for answers, are they finding you or do they find somebody else? That's the whole game. And this is something that we've tracked very clearly with our clients. For example, with Reagan Archibald, we can actually measure this. We can look at the exact question his audience is asking and track where he shows up in those search results over time. So what I'm going to show you here is exactly how we measure that positioning. In the beginning, there's no traction. You can search these questions and we don't find our videos anywhere. But over time, as the content strategy compounds, you start to see something very different. You start to see rankings, you start to see visibility, and you start to see that we dominate entire categories or branches at a time. And so we actually score this because we want to know, are we increasing our positioning month over month? Are we showing up in more of the right places? Are we moving higher in the results where it matters most? So as you can see, this isn't about guessing. It's about measuring whether you're actually becoming the go-to authority in your space. Thought leadership isn't just creating content. It's being found. It's being chosen. It's being trusted at the exact moment someone is searching for help. And when you track positioning like this, you can see the progress very clearly. You can watch it grow. You can measure your authority in real time. So this is where everything we've talked about comes together, because if your audience is right, if your problem and solution are aligned, your definition of success is very clear, then this metric tells you the truth. Are you actually winning attention from the right people or not? And when you see yourself consistently showing up at the top in front of your dream clients, that's when you know your thought leadership is working. Not because it feels good, but because you're positioned where it matters most. If you really want to implement what we've been talking about, the next step is understanding how to position yourself as the face of your brand. This is what amplifies everything we've talked about in this video. Your content performs better, your authority increases, your ability to generate high quality leads goes up. So I want you to watch this next episode. It's called What Are the Benefits of Personal Branding? That video will give you the framework for how to position yourself as a true thought leader and how to turn that positioning into real revenue for your business. So go watch that episode now.